I'm here in the EU section of Brussels, where we're waiting leaders to come tonight for a very important summit. Over dinner, they're going to discuss what to do next on Ukraine. We had EU diplomats and ambassadors meeting to the early morning hours to try to prep this summit, and a lot has been left undecided, including issues of sanctions and how to help Ukraine progress economically and politically towards the West. The most likely thing to happen tonight is to add additional names to this list of 21 Russians already subject to visa bans and asset freezes. This is what they call phase 2 of their sanctions. Individuals that they think are culpable in the annexation of Crimea. Again, 10 names to be added. About half of them are controversial. These include people very close to Vladimir Putin, but also we're hearing a Russian journalist who has been served as Vladimir Putin's chief propagandist. So we have about 5 of those names that are agreed, are likely to be added, another 5 or so that are likely to be debated, and that will be the main effort we see tonight, those new names expanded as part of that sanctions list. Much more broader economic, fiscal, trade sanctions, what is called phase 3 of their economic sanctions that would go across all industries in Russia. It was something that we thought might be mooted at tonight's summit, but increasingly we're hearing that that is not something they're going to do. It's just, at this point, they're not ready for both politically and economically. Politically, we've heard already this morning from Angela Merkel, the German chancellor. She has said that really the only thing that will prompt phase 3 is if Russia goes beyond Crimea into eastern Ukraine. Now, that is not universally held. There are other countries that believe that the annexation of Crimea itself should be enough, but we're clearly not going to get a decision on that tonight. They're going to engage on that debate, what these triggers might be. But the other thing that hasn't happened yet is the groundwork hasn't been laid in terms of what would be the impact of these sanctions on various member states. So what we'll also likely see is the European Commission get tasked with doing sort of the granular work on things like contracts with Russian companies and those kinds of things that will give the EU much better insight as to which country will be hit by which kinds of sanctions. There's 2 sides of this, right? There is hitting Russia, but they also want to show that they're supporting Ukraine to try to pull Ukraine closer into the West. The main event on that is going to be Friday morning, where we finally get a signing of this, what's called the association agreement, this very controversial EU integration deal. And remember, this was the deal that the first person who rejected it, President Viktor Yanukovych, when he rejected it, this started all this controversy. He started the protest that eventually led to his downfall. What we're going to see tomorrow, Friday morning, is Yatsenyuk, the current acting prime minister, signed the deal, but then basically the trade elements of this will be taken out. So we're going to see the political chapters signed, mostly symbolic, although there are some security and military affairs and coordination that are part of that deal, which could be controversial, particularly for the Russians. So that will be the main attempt to pull the Ukrainians into the West as part of the summit over the course of these 2 days. The other thing we're likely to see on Friday is what's called energy security. There is a lot of concern that, again, even 7-8 years after the last Ukrainian crisis where Russia, Gazprom, cut off gas to Europe, that Europe is still too reliant on both oil and gas from Russia. So what we're likely to see is the European Commission tasked with coming up with a new plan to rapidly increase not only sort of new sources of oil and gas, like shale gas from the U.S. or new pipelines from the Caspian Sea that sort of go around Russian territory, but increasing domestic supply inside the EU, increasing energy conservation so there was less reliant on energy-intensive industries. So that is also likely to be agreed. That is what's going to happen internally, that the EU is going to agree to try to get their own house in order. I'm Peter Spiegel, Brussels Bureau Chief of the Financial Times, here at the EU Summit.